It really is curious that I get so many of these large quartz, not really boulders, rocks. Oh look, that's got a little pocket in the side here. I bet there's crystals down in there. That's a really beautiful rock. But I find him in close proximity to this, to stone walls. It's almost as if whoever was making these stone walls, when they came upon a chunk of white quartz, they set it off the side, or they placed it on the very top. I generally don't see it on the top though. I usually see them. See, look, there's no quartz here on the top that I can see. I usually see them set off to the side, which I find kind of curious. Why would they do that? Since we're coming up on my trail camera that I got set out here, this is a deer trail we're on. I'm monitoring coming and goings of the deer onto my property to bring up coyotes. You guys may have noticed, I think I'm on, well, the next one will be version 12 of my Coyote Wolf Hybrid tribute. I had a guy come in and said, you better start managing those coyotes or you won't have any whitetails left. They love to say hysterical things. Another guy told me, oh, every day on the streets of Rockland you'll see a coyote with a baby puppy or a kitten in its mouth. The statements are laughable. I remember when I was a teenager back in the 70s, we had a very low, I think in 2008 we reached our all-time low maybe. Maybe it was earlier than that, but I just remember there wasn't that many deer. And that's about the time that the Coyote Wolf hybrid, the Eastern Coyote, which is a mix of wolf and coyote, and I believe dog, Canis domesticus. Canis lupus, and I forgot what coyote was. Canis something. And in 2022, we had a record whitetail deer harvest. I think we harvested 48,000. And I believe with fewer hunters than we had back in the 70s. Less people are hunting. And we have, well, currently there are areas that are over carrying capacity. Like this year, you can apply for a doe permit, which if you get that, that means you could kill either a buck or doe, and then you can purchase, I think for $12, an additional doe permit allowing you to shoot a second deer. So a lot of Maine deer hunters, if they're so inclined, could harvest 2 deer this year. You could theoretically harvest more than that if you worked some of the island communities where deer density is a real issue. So this narrative that the coyotes coming into the state are going to decimate the deer herd holds no merit. It doesn't hold any water. It has no merit at all. Our deer herd is healthy and thriving. We got tons of deer. Deer crawling all over the place. When I was a teenager, there was very few deer going through here. And now you could put a trail camera anywhere's in here and get deer going through, crossing through. They cross through everywhere. It's like a deer pasture, like a cow pasture. And then they'll tell you that the coyotes eat the baby fawns, which this is not incorrect. But like I pointed out to the guy that was saying they were taking baby kittens and puppies down the streets of Rockland, and I asked him what his point was, and pointed out, you know what kills more puppies and kittens? Cars driven by human beings. There's been one adult fatality, 2009, Nova Scotia, by a coyote. That's it. You're 500 times more likely to be killed by your pet dog than you are by a wild coyote. And oftentimes we discover now when we do long-term studies that the presence of an apex predator in the environment frequently leads to healthier herbivore herds. Pretty much any time somebody starts pointing out all the atrocities and horrific things that an apex predator is doing, or that they've got some advantage over their prey base, it usually has to do with humans doing stupid shit like going in and building roads and cutting all the trees down, killing the wintering areas, and doing things that are advantageous for the Well, you know, here's the thing. It's not necessarily advantageous for the predator. That's one way of looking at it. But our actions in the forest tend to be detrimental to the very herbivore herds that we covet as trophies, right? That the trophy hunters and the guides and the people whose livelihood depends, you know, it's blood money, right? Let's call it what it is. They have to kill shit to get it. They want huge, large herbivore herds. They don't give a flying fig how healthy they are. They don't even really care if there's trophies in there. They just want the sheer numbers to satisfy a large client base and to constantly have growth. And they view apex predators as a direct competitor for their success. And in reality, this is not the case. The predators coming into the environment, here's the thing. People say they have to be managed. They've managed themselves for tens of thousands of years before we showed up. And in fact, on two examples that I'm aware of, when humans migrated to Australia and humans migrated to North America, areas previously not occupied by human beings but occupied by large herds of megafauna, we caused large extinction events of the megafauna. When we showed up, we wiped everything out to extinction. If anything, we are not the ones that should be doing the managing, because when we manage things, we tend to screw it up. Natural ecosystems tend to be very complex and self-regulating and don't need our help. If you ask me, it's more than a little egotistical of us to assume that we need to manage the environment. I hear that so often. We have to manage them. Better be managing them. Usually followed by a factoid that's incorrect. A lump of misinformation. Coyotes are easily the most maligned and misunderstood creature that I'm familiar with. People say the most outlandish, ridiculous things. Now, in the case of them taking out a lamb in the springtime, which we would do exactly the same thing if we were in the environment. In fact we do the exact same thing, since it's legal to kill coyote puppies in their den. And I guarantee you, if a coyote hunter did that, they'd be bragging, look at all the coyotes. Oh, I snuffed out that generation. Look what a man I am. Look how big my you-know-what is. Which is basically what it boils down to. I killed this dangerous animal. They're not happy unless they're trying to establish how vicious and dangerous these creatures are. When a coyote, they'll make this statement, and there's even photos to back it up. Hey, look at this coyote killing this fawn. Look how horrible that is. What a terrible, monstrous creature, evil creature that coyote is. I'm prone to ask questions like, how many fawns did the doe have? Did the coyote kill all of them? Did she have 2? Did she have 3? Did she have 1 and it just killed 1? Each one of those scenarios has potentially a completely different outcome from the narrative that the coyote hunter wants you to fall into the trap of believing. Because see, here's the thing. Let's say sometimes white-tailed deer, pretty commonly they'll have twins. Occasionally they'll have triplets. So let's say a doe has triplets. That's a lot of resources. An experienced, mature doe that knew her stuff might be able to pull it off. But even if she does, and they do, it's a great drain on resources, right? She has to nurse those babies, she has to eat extra food, and then she has to forage in areas and keep them safe and find forage for them as well. Now, if the coyote comes by and kills one of her babies, the chances are the 2 she has left are going to be bigger and healthier and get more food, and she'll obviously be able to nurse them more, and they'll have statistically a better chance of making it through a bad winter. That following, that fall and that winter. Even in the case of a doe that had 1 lamb and then she lost it, now she has no concerns for the whole summer except for herself. She can fatten herself up, she doesn't have to nurse a baby, she's probably going to be of a much heavier body weight going into winter and better able to carry an even larger and healthier or more than 1 fawn the following year. So you can see how there's a variety of scenarios that can take place, and there are reasons for apex predators in the environment. They make their prey base healthy, and the 2 are self-regulated. this one guy, saying, "Oh, you better manage the coyotes or you won't have any deer left." I said, "What happens to the coyotes if they come into an area and eat all the deer? What would happen to them?" If you're correct in assuming that deer is their prey base, which it's generally not their main prey base, and they ate up all the deer, wouldn't they starve to death and go extinct? Canadian lynx and snowshoe hares are the most classic, probably most famous example that's taught. If you actually go and study biology instead of just reading hysterical Facebook posts and then commenting on that, you'll discover that the Canadian lynx and the snowshoe hare, where they exist together, have a complex self-regulating relationship, which was much more complex and deeper than we initially thought, and probably is many layers deeper than that than we even know now. But recent peer-reviewed studies have shown that the snowshoe hare actually is able to regulate the population of lynx, I believe, by reducing its birth rate. Reducing or increasing its birth rate. I think there was more to it than that. That was a long time ago I read that paper. I constantly point out to these people that in those videos, I ask them, did I provide any information that was incorrect? Because they'll be like, "Why didn't you talk about when they ripped apart a baby deer? How come you don't talk about that? Do you know they attack people? They eat baby dogs and puppies and kittens." You'd think you were talking to people that weren't hunters, that never go into the woods. Wolves, which are closely related, obviously, to coyote wolf hybrids, there was, I think, a 20-year study done in Yellowstone Park. They found that when they reintroduced wolves, that it altered the behavior pattern of the herbivores to the point where it drove them away from the edges of the stream where they had been degrading habitat and the quality of the water, and it actually benefited and increased the habitat for cold water species such as trout and salmon. So if you're a trophy cold water fisherman, you want to pursue trout and salmon, you should want wolves in the environment. And overall herds tend to be healthier. Herbivore herds tend to be much healthier when there is an apex predator in the mix, because with any predator-prey relationship, it's kind of like an arms race, right? One side does something. One side gets to run a little faster or has a little bit greater endurance. Well, then the other side has to match that, be it predator or prey. And there's a classic example of that in the pronghorn antelope, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with. And I think pronghorn antelopes can top out, I think, 45 miles an hour. Don't yell at me if I'm incorrect. I'm just pulling this from memory. And the other interesting attribute they possess is the ability to run long distance. They have great endurance. So not only can they run really fast, they can run long distances. Generally, when an animal can run fast, you think of something like a cheetah. It has this burst of speed, and then it has to recover. It can't run for miles and miles. So at some point, biologists started scratching their head because they're looking at the environment that the pronghorn antelope exists in. There's no predator that has the ability to run as fast as a pronghorn for anywhere near the length of time that a pronghorn does. So how did they become so adept? How did they beat the arms race and just, leap way ahead? Did they get alien technology? What was causing it? The answer, turns out, is in the fossil record. I think it was the short-faced bear. I could be incorrect on this too. But it was a predator that had the ability to run really fast and run long distances. I think it was a megafauna, which is something over 70 kilograms, 150 pounds or so, larger than that. Now, most likely, I'm guessing here, because I'm pulling some of these facts right out of here. So you might want to fact check me. With the introduction of human beings onto the North American continent, more than likely drove this predator to extinction, but obviously the pronghorn antelope is still here, just drove out the predator that was involved in the arms race with the pronghorn antelope. So I find it more than a little ironic that hunters who so desperately want to despise the coyote, yet covet the very same creatures they claim is its prey base, fail to understand that the animal they're coveting, the deer or the moose or the elk, was shaped by the very predator that they despise. The attributes of that herbivore the intelligence, the athleticism, the size, their behavior, where they live, has all been shaped over millennia by the intimate relationship between the predator and prey. It is accurate to say that we would not have the deer and the elk and the sheep and moose and caribou that we have today if it wasn't for the presence of such apex predators as wolves and coyotes. Hysteria rules this hatred. It is evidenced by the fact we have a $10 bounty in the state of Maine on coyotes, even though bounties, in a biological sense, historically, have been shown to never be effective. Never. They're never effective at removing an unwanted pest, as they like to say. Maine's population of coyotes is estimated to be 10 to 12,000 and is quite stable in spite of everything that humans throw at it. Every little trick, every little sneaky, nasty thing that we do to coyotes, they breeze right through it. They just get better. We have created a smarter, more adaptable coyote by relentlessly pursuing it, which in of itself is ironic. I'll show you why they call it an artist conch. So if we look underneath of it, it's nice and white. And if you scratch it with something, it'll leave, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to mar this beautiful, perfect mushroom, but it will leave a mark, just like a sketch of X. And they get quite large, couple feet in width, 2.5 feet in width maybe. Here's an example that's matured and sporulated and has thus died. I'll break this one off, show this one to you. So the other thing that these can be useful for, if you're in a survival situation and it's difficult to make fire, you can make a hole in this. Not this one. Well, this one's kind of wet. You want them drier than this, but you would drill a hole or poke a hole in it. And you'd stick that ember in there and cover it up, and it would allow it to smolder all day long. I think some people, I don't know what else they do with this. I've always just heard it called, yeah, I'll show you on this little one. I've just heard it called artist conch. See how I just made that mark right there? And when it dries, these marks will be permanently in there. It's just beautiful little mushroom. Polypore. Hymeneum layer down here is just a bunch of little tiny pores. We've seen these before. They've grown quite a bit. I was in here a couple weeks ago. I am back to get my trail camera, which is on that, I think it's a sugar maple. I think the Latin for sugar maple is Acer saccharum. Acer saccharum, something like that. Yeah, I don't know what these guys are. Some kind of polypore. They're woolly, cottony, very interesting mushroom compared to our lobster mushroom. Succulent, delicious. Well, this is unexpected. It's quite dry. Ooh! There's another one right there. Where is it? Right there. Yeah, these are the first edible mushrooms I've found on this trip. Hypomyces lactiflorum. This is the mutated version in my area of Rushla betavips. I'm probably saying that incorrectly, most likely. In my area, it attacks the host Rushla betavip, something like that. Some areas it attacks the milk mushroom Lacterius. And it changes the morphology. It changes the morphology and makes them taste fantastic. As with any mushroom, make 100% sure, 100% sure you know what the mushroom is before you attempt to eat it. But having said that, this is recommended as a good, safe beginner mushroom. In spite of its hideous appearance, it's a choice edible mushroom, easily identified with no toxic lookalikes. There's nothing in the forest that I'm aware of anyways that is similar enough to this for you to confuse it with anything toxic. Fried up in butter, this is how I prefer it. You can do it in olive oil. To me, it has the consistency of like a French fry, like a mushroom flavored French fry. It's really good. It's a good mushroom. All right, we'll get this one too. I don't know what kind of condition this one's in. I'm really surprised to find these here under oak. Oh, I don't know. This one feels kind of like, yep. The bugs, Coleoptera diptera, beetles and flies specifically, will lay eggs in this. And then what you're seeing here is the larva. When it hatches out, it burrows through here and consumes the mushroom.